and the pledge by Supervisor McClure. Is Mr. Bermejo here? Okay, cool.
Thank you. Lord, we thank you for another day of life. Therefore, I exhort, first of all, that supplication, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings and all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceful life. Lord, we pray for our country. We pray for the city of Florence. And we pray for every member of the city council. And we pray for our mayor and for our leaders. I pray that you give them wisdom and understanding in all the things that they have to do. And we ask you that you bless our families, bless our country, that your blessing and your protection be upon each and every one of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and
to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
First up, we have call to the public. I have 3 names here, but if anybody else would like to address the public, feel free to come up after these 3 names. First off, I have Barry McCain.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Surdy, Board of Supervisors, staff, and friends. My name is Barry McCain from City of Maricopa. We never deny history. I agree that we are a republic, as pointed out to me by Supervisor Miller, but we have a democratic process of law. President James Madison and Alexander Hamilton believed that if democracy were to die, that it would happen at the hands of a faction. A faction is a party or group as within a government that is often contentious or self-seeking. Both President Madison and Alexander Hamilton felt that the greatest threat to democracy would be rooted not in class but in ethnic identity. We know that history proves this to be true. But they did it with Vietnam, Civil Rights Movement, Venezuela, Ivory Coast, Ukraine, and even Sarajevo. Venezuela slid into an authoritarian government, and Ivory Coast descended into civil war. I thought America was about tolerance and our respect for others. As I have explained, the Democratic leadership seems to not believe in democratic principles and ideas, but factionalism and ethnic identity. I love my country too much to tolerate either. The next election, yes, we got elections coming up, we should vote for someone who wants to unite our country, not separate our country. God, country, family.
David Coward.
Morning, Chair, board members. My name is Dave Coward from Gold Canyon. I'm representing Gold Canyon Community, Inc. Just a couple of things. We want to give some kudos to the Public Works Department. They've been busy in our area, kind of clearing off some of the brush on the side of the road, which really helps because when it gets overgrown, people who ride bikes or walkers have to get into the line of traffic. It's a safety issue, and they're working that, and we appreciate that. We also had a meeting last night, one of our monthly community meetings, and one issue was brought up by one of our attendees, and they were saying about law enforcement. Why isn't there more law enforcement of state land trust permits and enforcement of dumping rules off of unpaved portion of Peralta Road? Who should be enforcing that, the state or the county? This is a recurring issue. If anybody's driven out where the pavement ends on Peralta Trail towards the trailhead. A couple of times I've gone out and I've counted up 40 to 60 people that have just pulled off the side of the road and set up camps, either for the weekend, I don't know for the weekend or for long term, but who's managing that? Because they are destroying the surrounding desert. So I would recommend that maybe a work session, or if you could send someone to the county, out to our community to talk to us what's happening, who's controlling that, because there's a lot of consternation out in the community on that issue. So we would just appreciate the county kind of look at that. And there's another issue with all the new housing going on west of Cloudview out in Gold Canyon. It's apparently cut off the Goldfield Trail that used to come from the state park in Apache Junction, goes all the way over to Peralta Trailhead, and that trail has been cut off because now people have homes right where the trail was. So I don't know who manages that trail, but could we get some action to figure out how we can reconnect that trailhead? So anyways, just wanted to bring those issues up from our community. Thank you very much.
Keith Seaman.
Chairman Trudy, members of the board. I know two of you because Representative Kavanaugh and I share the same territory, and Mr. Miller I'm in his district. So I've met those, I've met the rest of you. But my name is Keith Seaman. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about my experiences this year's legislature. Yeah, I'm Keith Seaman, the Democratic representative from District 16. As you know, well, you may not know, LD 16 includes City of Maricopa, Casa Grande, Coolidge, Eloy, the Gila River Indian Community, half of Florence, Main Street that way, and out there, desert, and a rather large area of Pima County. It's the Tucson Mountain area in Pima County. I was sworn in January 9th of this year. I sit on the Transportation Committee and the Land, Agriculture, and Rural Affairs Committee, which I find both are appropriate to our legislative district in this area. So, but as your representative, one of your representatives from Pinal County, I'm always cognizant of what laws will help or hurt our county. I have spoken with many representatives of each of the cities in the county, the League of Cities, and your representatives, the Association of County Supervisors, for advice on the pending legislation that how will affect the cities and the county of Pinal. And I usually take their advice on the voting. I also support legislation that benefits the entire state as well, such as the housing funding, education, health care, and others. For example, I voted against the Republican-supported bill to prohibit sales taxes on food because I was told by the cities in Pinal County how much money they would lose if that became a law. It was passed legislature, but the governor vetoed it. Every transportation bill affecting Pinal County came before the Transportation Committee, of which I'm one of the Democrats on that committee. I vocally supported and voted out of committee and to the floor all transportation bills that affect Pinal County and all the cities. In some cases, I even had to lobby my other members of my caucus on the committee to convince them to support the bills because we all have our counties that we're looking out for. The Democratic caucus, the 29 of us in the legislature, pooled our available money in the budget to ensure that we had enough for our Democratic priorities, such as the homeless fund, education, K-12, and higher education, and health care. Those are our Democratic priorities, among others. However, I also submitted asks in the...
Hold it right there. Natasha, can we waive the clock today on Mr. Seaman because last meeting we had the other rep, and I want to encourage all of the reps to come address us.
I appreciate
so
that.
Rather than agendize this later, can we just give him this time to give the same report? according to equal time. Chris Keller, do you see a problem with that?
Mr. Chairman, this is a call to the public, so you are free to allow the public to speak, at length if you so choose. So
Okay, in
you
this
have the ability
situation,
you have the ability to waive that?
for the reasons I just laid out, I would like to give him unlimited time today.
And in addition, I would suggest going forward that we already have an item number 3 that is state and federal legislative session bills, budget proposals, and pending actions on the board that we could go ahead and potentially work with. It's usually Supervisor Miller who provides that update, but we could also agendaize it so that other members of the legislature that may be in attendance could provide their views on that same item, and it would be appropriate then.
And if they or their staff are listening, then go through Supervisor Miller, and we'll put it under that for the other reps. We do have several senators and other reps that represent Pinal County. So from then on, we'll proceed, and we'll let you say.
Thank you. I appreciate that, but I'm not prepared. I could say I wasn't prepared to talk specifically about the agenda item, but if you want me to. But anyway, I submitted ask on this budget for the completion of State Route 347, 238, and for Highway 87. I supported and voted for all the budget items that affected Pinal County and LD 16, as well as many of our Democratic priorities in the state. The Democratic members of the Transportation Committee always supported the bill to fund widen Interstate 10, which is important to Pinal County. Matter of fact, we heard one afternoon that the 5 of us on the Democratic caucus on Transportation Committee that the I-10 bill that we were supposed to hear the next day had been removed from discussion by the chair, and a Stryker amendment had replaced it. So our caucus strategized to kill the replacement and get the original bill heard. After discussion of the new bill, Representative Sam moved the bill, and I insisted on a roll call vote. The chairman of the committee knew that would kill his new bill, so he just moved it off the agenda. So we were concerned at that point that might have been the only time we would get our $39 million that we needed for I-10. So the I-10 funding was then tacked onto a bill in the Senate to live another day and finally passed both houses. So those are the kinds of things that I've been doing. So if we hadn't strategized like we did, we might not have had the I-10 bill get through. Our Democratic caucus is in the minority by 2 votes, so not many of our bills get heard, but our voices get heard. We have helped pass several Republican bills that we deem are good for the constituents of our state, and I will continue to confer with the people in Pinal County to determine their priorities. So I ask you to contact me this summer to make me aware of your priorities as the Board of Supervisors. I believe it was one of you supervisors who had a concern about some money out one of your areas out in the east part of the county. Let me know about that. We'll try to get some priorities on that one. So I can work with the other legislators from Pinal County to get results. I am more than just a nice guy. Anyway, I would like to request, if we could, maybe an item on the agenda for next board meeting or board meeting in the future. I will stay for a while and see if I can help you on the legislative agenda, but I wasn't prepared to talk about those today. But anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning. I'm Noel Reck from Casa Grande. I'm responding to Teresa Martinez's unprofessional presentation at the last meeting. Exchanged emails indicate she believes her comments were appropriate and very accurate! Thus, I bring my concerns before the presentation recipients, citizens, officials, and staff. The legislative report turned into a 15-minute self-congratulatory campaign speech. This is twice now, including an attempt to condescendingly demean LD 16 colleague, Representative Keith Seaman. Revisiting the speech, what thoughts did I come away with? 1, placed on the board's agenda to detail the legislative session, stick to the topic. 2, provide the full details of who assisted in successful legislation, Republican and Democrat, and yes, besides T.J. Shope. 3, mention the failures as well. Like the 90-some and counting Republican-sponsored bills sent to Governor Hobbs and knowing full well they'd be vetoed. Mention was made that the vetoed Born Alive bill will probably be back next session, a continued waste of taxpayer money and time for the same result. Mentioning Mark Fincham, number 4, as a great mentor doesn't speak well. Enough said on that. 5, be honest about the voter-rejected vouchers and their expansion by a Republican legislature and governor. Be open to discussion of a program that statistics show disproportionately favors parents whose children already attend private schools and has the potential to bankrupt the state. 6, quote, Representative Seaman is a very nice man. He did not get $20 million to spend on his district, unquote. A condescending, untruthful attack on fellow LD 16 Representative Keith Seaman. Condescendingly saying he's a nice man, which he is, as well as a competent, dedicated legislator, is no compliment, but a backhanded attempt to discredit his service to the state through disinformation. He and the other Democrats did get $20 million, but pooled their money for a variety of statewide proposals for health, education, homelessness, etc., that will, of course, benefit Pinal County. Untruth by omission is still untruth. Board, it's important your constituents aren't subjected to official disinformation and the resulting division. Some, hearing untruths in this assemblage, like Governor Hobbs outlawed tamales, even when said in jest, or Democrats didn't get the $20 million, will spread that disinformation, creating further division and distrust of government. That's often seen here with speakers claiming Democrats are fouling up the works and have no legislative solutions. Yet, as the majority, they don't have the power to foul things up. And when the majority won't let their solutions out of committee, let alone on the floor, it's hard to legislate. Ms. Martinez claims the session was a huge success. I obviously disagree. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chair, Supervisors. Vice Mayor Rich Vidiello, the City of Maricopa. First of all, I want to thank you for the job that you do day in and day out for the whole Pinal County. Thank you. I know most people want to come up, say what they want to say, but I want to thank you for what you do because I know what you guys do. We had a fatal accident on Honeycutt on Sunday night around 9 o'clock. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department for their swift and quick action to come out, secure the area, do the investigation, and take care of the unfortunate situation that happened in our city. So I just want to thank you guys again, supporting Pinal County Supervisors. I want to let you know that. I support also the Sheriff's Department, and I want you to know that the Sheriff's Department's a huge part of Maricopa, even though we have our own PD. But you know, one goal, one team, and I want to thank them for doing what they did that night, because it was a long night for some of those officers, and I felt bad for the fact that they had to work 12, 13 hours for an unfortunate situation of two people drag racing. So thank you for that, and I just wanted to let you know that.
Anyone else?
Roberto Ravelis, resident of Gold Canyon, walking on a sprained, strained ankle to be here this morning. It's not my 90 and a half years of age that affect my walking. But, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your judicious management of call to the public. Today, anti-immigrant hypocrisy will be on full display at Arizona's border with Mexico. Presidential candidate Ron DeSantis, who has been inhumanely engaging in shipping refuge-seeking immigrants from a southern border to unalerted and unprepared communities, is in a cynical move to create chaos and opposition to immigrants. He'll be in Arizona to advance his political campaign. DeSantis, whose own Italian-born family was subjected to ugly and pervasive bigotry by immigration policies he is now cynically promoting against other immigrants. Historically, from the 1880s, Italian immigrants to the U.S. were subjected to deadly violence by the Ku Klux Klan and other anti-immigrant groups that targeted and vandalized Catholic churches that were seen as supportive of, quote, Mediterranean, unquote, immigrants who were considered inferior to Northern Europeans. These bigoted views culminated in the 1920s when Congress adopted severe limitations on migration from Southern, Central, and Eastern Europe. Our nation's immigration history is plagued with racist restrictions, but to see today's Republican anti-immigrant propaganda being promoted by DeSantis continues to be a sickness that should generate opposition by all Americans, Republicans and Democrats and Independents, and other than our own indigenous Native American First People. Shame on DeSantis. But I'm reminded of the 1950s Dragnet show where Sergeant Joe Friday used to say, just the facts, ma'am. If we could just deal with immigration and the facts that historically our nation has been a receiving place for people who are escaping prejudice, poverty, and other crises. As a memorial in Washington, D.C. says, those who don't learn from history are doomed, I say damned, to repeat its mistakes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the call to the public. Now we're going to have a presentation by Sergeant Rory Skidell of the Canine Unit. And this came about, I asked that they come in person because we had a consent agenda item about a month ago. And I know that from my experience that everybody's always interested in police dogs, what they do, how they work, and just give us an update on what do you need? Do we need more? How can people volunteer to help to do whatever? So,
well, I had put together. Well, first of all, good morning, and thank you for inviting me to speak.
And we also hoped that there would be a dog here.
Yes, I know. A couple of my handlers had a late call out last night helping out the Attorney General's office with a stop out on Highway 60. So it resulted in a good seizure, but on the flip side of that, I've got a shortage of handlers until later on this afternoon. I can bring one by today if you want later.
Okay.
Short presentation is what you're asking for here. Is there a time limit because what I prepared might go on for 15 or so?
That's fine.
Is that okay, sir?
Yeah.
All right. So the Sheriff's Office Canine Unit is basically a combined unit or combined effort unit between our detention staff and the sworn side of the house or sworn deputies. On the detention side, I have 2 canine handlers, and on the sworn side, there are 4 canine handlers. 5 of the 6 canines are trained in dual-purpose work, specifically canine odor or narcotic odor detection, and then suspect apprehension and location. The service dogs that we use at this time, 5 of the 6 are all Belgian Malinois. They range in ages from 17 months up to 7 years. We try to get about 9 to 10 years of service life out of the animals. We've been able to extend that a little bit because of the reduction in the amount of bite work that we use in training. We don't do a lot of bite work in training like other agencies you see where persons are wearing full padded suits. We've learned that suspects don't run around in those full padded suits, and our dogs have a tendency to sometimes overlook human odor that's being emanated from somebody versus looking for what they can visually see. All our dogs are imported from Holland. We purchased them from a vendor in Arkansas at this point. We also utilize vendors, another vendor in Illinois, and then also in California. We've really focused on using the Malinois breed because of its size Its conduciveness to the climate here in Arizona, it's a little hotter. So like German Shepherds are traditionally used back east. It's a little bit shorter coat, and it's a little bit smaller in stature, so it's easier to get up into small confined areas. The biggest reason that we use this breed, though, is by far its drive and its willingness and desire to work with the handler. Its ability to build a relationship and bond with the handler and perform the work that we're asking it to do. And again, both on the narcotic odor or searching foundation and then also suspect location and apprehension. The funding for the dogs, generally looking at the figure up on the board, $9,000 has actually increased in the last year and a half to 2 years. We were spending about $7,500 per dog for a green dog that's about 14 months old and completely untrained. If dogs come to us a year or two older with a significant amount of sporting work or training in them that's been brought from overseas, we could be spending upwards of $20,000 per dog. We do all of our training in-house. The funding for the dogs themselves, we've been blessed with a very supportive community and the county attorney's office in the form of RICO funding that comes from seized assets and forfeitures. Following the initial purchase of the dog, all of the funding for the animal comes from sheriff's office budget, and that would include veterinary expenses, food, training, consumable equipment, things that happen to get damaged and need to be replaced over time. The funding also provides for training for our instructors. Instead of sending instructors out to an area to be certified or get somebody else to certify the dogs, I have 2 trainers or instructors on hand. Our dogs are certified twice a year. The certification is actually reviewed by an entity called the National Canine Audit Tracking System, which is also out in Arkansas and in Colorado. Because of the amount that we spend on these dogs, a lot of people, again, with the excitement in seeing them, they really have the perception that these dogs are more like family pets, and we don't keep them. We as an entity, the agency and yourselves have invested in these animals. So we treat them like and provide the best care that we possibly can for them, but we maintain a service dog relationship with them. Their enjoyment and their fulfillment is actually being able to work with the handler, whether it be in a training environment or in an operational on-duty type stage. Again, the canines, they're trained in dual purpose or single purpose, being the narcotic odor detection or suspect location and apprehension. We train on 3 primary odors right now, methamphetamine, heroin, and cocaine. On the sworn side of the house, we still train with the odor of marijuana in the detention side of the house because introducing that contraband into the detention facility is unlawful. And then we've actually begun experimenting introduction of the odor of fentanyl to one of our dogs at the detention facility. And it's a matter of just going through some litigation, I suppose, and finding out what kind of case law is going to be established with that before we actually continue with it or not. Handler selection is a process similar to that we go through with the actual canines. The canines, when they're selected, go through a selection process that evaluates all these different drives, their play drive, prey drive, courage, and such. The deputies that go through a selection process to participate in the canine program, they have to have been with the sheriff's office for a period of 3 years, demonstrate proficiency in self-initiated activity, preferably traffic enforcement and drug enforcement. And then the selection process includes things like a oral board exam or an interview where we basically talk to the candidate about what they intend to offer, what they can offer or contribute to the unit. A written test that demonstrates their understanding of existing policies and procedures and case law. Physical abilities test. We have them then apply all of these things that they may presumably be able to put down on paper in a written test and have them demonstrate their knowledge and understanding in a practical application or a mock scenario. and then we have them interact with canines a little bit to, again, get a greater understanding that they see how important it is to initially form a bond, however little it is, with a canine to get that working relationship up and going. Nobody wants to work for a boss that has too high of expectations or unfairly, I suppose, disciplines you if mistakes are made. We really focus on a positive reinforcement, praise-based relationship with our working animals. The Handler Academy lasts about 7 to 12 weeks, and it varies that amount of time because of whether we're working a single-purpose or dual-purpose dog, and then also at the end of the academy, whether or not it's a detention officer who's not going to be subjected to an FTO period out on the road with another working handler. Following the appointment and or completion of the academy, they work with the canine 1 year probationary period of time, during which they work with their dog daily, at home, on and off duty, between calls, between stops, and they'll also attend in-service training every week or every Wednesday for a period of 8 hours each night. During that time, we run scenarios and, again, try to best determine what strengths and developmental needs each canine handler team has, and then work with trainers and instructors to find solutions to improve upon those developmental needs yet. I've mentioned a couple times, our detention officers, their basic duties and responsibilities in that facility, or in the facility, are to prevent the introduction of contraband. When there are disturbances within the facility, their responsibility is to assist the detention officers and try to restore order and bring back peace with potentially an elevated level of force within limitations of case law, and again, restore order to the facility. The sworn deputies, sworn handlers, on the other hand, their primary responsibility is that self-initiated criminal interdiction out on the road. And that's kind of one of the things that prevented a couple of our handlers from being able to come today. We work with other agencies, other municipalities, state, federal, local, to assist in their investigations in addition to initiating our own. We'll oftentimes be contacted by Drug Enforcement Administration, the ATF, or other entities, Homeland Security, to conduct stops out on the interstate and interdict loads of narcotics or other forms of contraband. And that's kind of what happened last night, working with the Attorney General's office. We also help our own investigative entities within our department, our anti-smuggling unit, our narcotics task force, and then also other bureaus within CIB if they end up serving search warrants and need a police canine to assist with the service of the warrant. Unlike most specialties with the sheriff's office, something like driving, firearms, defensive tactics, anything like that, none of the canine issues are actually mandated and regulated by Arizona Post. We follow standards that are subject to case law establishment, search and seizure, use of force, different cases that have evolved over decades involving documentation of training and establishing credibility and reliability in the canine's performance. And again, none of that's established or set by Arizona Post for a standard within this particular state. Unlike, many agencies are audited or certified once a year to demonstrate the proficiencies in the performance of the canines. Our dogs are actually biannually audited twice a year in each of the things that they do, whether it be narcotic odors or suspect apprehension and location. A few trophy shots of some of the work that that's come out of the effort and the investment in these animals. Some of the things our interdiction officers are looking for out on the road. One takeoff, this particular vehicle had a concealment load in the rocker panels of the car that was identified by a deputy. The rocker panels had been cut out, a hole made, contraband inserted with rope tied on the ends of it so it could be pulled out, and then that rocker panel was sealed back up with a metal plate covered over with Bondo, and then literally mud sprayed on the inside of the wheel well and the undercarriage of the car to make it look like it's just another motor vehicle passing up and down the roadway. But the interview tactics and techniques help us as interdiction deputies identify indicators of criminal behavior when we encounter different motorists and cause us to look further. Perhaps ask for and gain consent, or utilize one of the canines and conduct a free air sniff around the car and help us establish either probable cause to conduct a search, or if granted that consent, then we can go and find something like this. So in a regular passenger vehicle, you can see here that 40 and a half pounds of fentanyl powder was recovered, 40 and a half pounds of M30 pills was recovered, 7.5 pounds of cocaine, and 3 1/3 pounds of methamphetamine was recovered. Now, total value of this in just a narcotic seizure is almost $2 million. It's about $1,882,000. Fentanyl, another example of what these guys encounter. This was a minivan where the floor panel between the second and third row seating had been removed, cut out, and a trap door had been installed. Hinges and a locking mechanism were installed, so that way that door could be lifted up. Upon discovery of the door, we found, and removal of the door, we found 80 pounds of fentanyl. You're probably going to hear a recurring theme here: fentanyl, fentanyl, fentanyl. But it's not just drugs, it's also weapons that we encounter. This particular load wasn't quite so surreptitious. It wasn't quite so hidden. We get some people what we call just a throw and go, where they'll bag up dope, put it in bags, grocery bags, trash bags, and throw it in the car and run. This particular load was interdicted a few months ago, trash bags full of weapons and magazines and ammunition heading south to Mexico. Another not so surreptitious concealment method, and this is Canine Indy who discovered this, but it's about 6 pounds of fentanyl pills. You can see they're individually wrapped and packaged for pre-sale, and then the grocery bag on the kind of the top right beneath all the fentanyl pills, those are fist-sized rocks of methamphetamine. Total weight of those are about a half pound. So this was a load that was located in a piece of luggage inside of a car. And again, as little as that is, we're looking at about $118,000 worth of fentanyl pills and $950, just under $1,000 of meth. You may have seen this recently: $30,000 worth of currency in a shoebox in the behind a pickup truck. And we can say specifically that this was intended to be taken down south, go back to Mexico, because during a debrief of one of the occupants of the car, they disclosed exactly what it was going to be used for. It's payment for mules and persons guiding other persons across the border illegally. And the debrief also included that this wasn't the first time this has happened. This is one of several times, and the first time that they've been stopped. I mentioned a couple times, that's the last slide, by the way, mentioned a couple times deputies last night assisted the Attorney General's office with a stop out on Highway 60. And we keep seeing recurring things. Pinal County lies right in between two major markets in Arizona, the Phoenix and Tucson market. And these major highways, Interstate 10 and Highway 60, are major arteries, major thoroughfares for the smuggling of drugs and other forms of contraband between those two markets, so that way they can be then exported transnationally. The load of cocaine that was interdicted last night, it was 8 kilos. So with the packing material, it was about 22.25 pounds of cocaine. That's $186,000 worth of drugs in one load in a dash of a car. And that's one car out of all the vehicles that go up and down these interstates every single day. And we're fortunate to be able to be given some intel on what vehicle to look for, but getting into the vehicle entirely falls upon the interdicting deputy. Establishing reasonable suspicion to actually conduct a stop falls upon the deputy. Either getting consent or reason to run a dog around the car completely falls upon the deputy. And then their ability to locate this contraband inside of the vehicle, each of the vehicles that we've seen in these slides, entirely falls upon these deputies. The seizure last night was intended for one of two destinations, either Tennessee or New York. The driver didn't know where it was ultimately going to go until after he got to New Mexico, until he got to Albuquerque. But nonetheless, what yourselves, the community members who contribute to our unit and provide us the ability to replace these dogs when it's time for them to retire, the funding that's been made affordable by Mr. Volkmer at the county attorney's office through RICO funding. Everybody's investing in us, and I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to show you and talk to you a little bit your return on investment.
Thank you. And this is much more interesting than a lot of the boring stuff we usually handle here. So a lot of people wonder, since dogs' noses are 1,000 times better than ours.
Yes, sir.
Just being close to fentanyl, if it's in a powdered form, can it actually harm the dog?
And that's what we're experimenting with. That came out really bad. When we train our dogs to detect narcotic odor, we take bulk forms of narcotics, whether it be heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and we put those bulk forms in airtight containers with terracloth towels. So those towels actually become saturated with the odor, and they don't actually become exposed to or come in contact with the substance. Odor transmits, but the actual particles don't leave the container. Does that make sense? So we've found a company in another area of the country that has begun doing the same thing with fentanyl. And we have purchased what's called a training aid, kind of like that saturated towel, but it's actually two metal or aluminum discs with a couple pieces of Mylar and some other saturated material inside of there that's been, again, saturated with that odor, and it's being purchased by us to train the dogs up on identifying it. So you mentioned odors, kind of like, and I've used this in other demonstrations, so like when you go to an Italian restaurant and you smell food, you smell pizza, or you bring a pizza home, you can smell pizza. Most of us here can just smell the entire pizza, whereas the canine, when trained to, can differentiate the odor between the sausage, the pepperoni, the cheese, the sauce, all the spices in the sauce, the dough itself, and or even in the ingredients in the dough. It can identify each one of those, and that's how, well, with fentanyl, we don't want to expose the dog directly to those chemicals. We don't want to, there's some risk involved in that. I would imagine there is. And at this point in time, we just don't want to tread on those waters. Plus, the training aids that we're using to develop the dog's ability to detect that odor, it hasn't been challenged yet in a courtroom as to whether or not that dog was actually able to identify that odor. We're kind of taking steps by limiting our canines in the detention facility, reducing and trying to prevent that contraband from coming in before actually implementing this tactic out on the road and or other tool the dog can use by specifically being able to detect the odor of fentanyl.
Also, you mentioned these are not family pets. They're not like your normal dogs.
No, sir.
However, with a lot of the hate towards law enforcement these days, can you see a possibility of like going to different classrooms and just, letting, this might be a way to reach out to coordinate with young folks that, hey, police are here for a purpose and we're not the enemy, and look at the cool things we do, and
we have done that in the past, and with the resources that I have available, the expectations that are placed upon the unit, and in addition, not only just to perform the self-initiated activities, but to support the other bureaus, I've had to look at, what benefit am I getting out of taking a canine off the road to put him in a classroom with 7- and 8-year-old kids that we're technically talking way over. People want to see the dogs. People want to see, more than anything, they want to see the dog bite people. And I don't believe in using terms like attack, chasing down, doing all of these things that are resulting in legislation being brought forward in other jurisdictions and in other states as close as California and other parts of the Pacific Northwest, where there's legislation been introduced where they're not allowed to use bite dogs. Or dogs are only going to be allowed to be deployed to detect the odor of explosives or narcotics. They're not going to be allowed to use to bite, locate, apprehend, or anything anymore. And I am trying to prevent us by becoming case law, by really having my team focus on their limitations by existing case law as it relates to use of force. And then when if we go and talk to youth in schools, a little bit older are okay, but when we get into that 7, 8, 9 age bracket where we really get the ooh and ah factor, they want to see the dog. And it's more entertainment. And I kind of have to balance what's the long-term versus short-term effect of that versus having these dogs out on the road and interdicting hundreds of pounds, ton quantities, collaboratively with other agencies throughout the state of Arizona of different forms of contraband moving through our county and poisoning people. So I really kind of have to look at where am I going to get my biggest bang for the buck? We do participate in community events. The sheriff's office holds many safety fairs, community events throughout the year, and we are active participants in all of those. I make sure that myself and at least 1 or 2 handlers go to each one of those. Different gain events, safe streets events. There's 2 actually a year in Casa Grande. We go to several every year.
Okay. Anyone else?
National Night Out, things like that.
Anyone else have any questions? It sounds like Mark Lamb may have something to say.
Sir. Trying to get out of your way, big man.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, I first want to thank Sergeant Skidell for coming and doing this. He runs you can see he's very thorough, runs a great unit. They do great work. Their primary focus is obviously drugs and then guns and money going back towards Mexico, back to the cartels. I just want to hit on 2 quick things. A drug that's starting to make its way now is xylazine. The cartels are now putting xylazine, which is a horse tranquilizer with 0 use for humans. They're adding this to the fentanyl now. The problem with the xylazine, it is a non-opioid, which means that things like naloxone and Narcan, which are used to counteract a fentanyl poisoning, is no longer effective. It will still be effective for the fentanyl part of that overdose poisoning. It is not effective for the xylazine, which presents another issue for the dogs and for the handlers. So that's something that we're dealing with. And then on the marijuana issue, did you touch on that much? So the marijuana issue, this is something we had to go to the county attorney's office with. Marijuana became legal, as we all know, here in the state of Arizona. So a lot of the canine units had to get rid of their dogs for marijuana because it's now legal. We still have dogs that smell for marijuana because while it is legal to have marijuana, it is illegal to have hundreds of pounds of marijuana that you are transporting. So we still have a use for, because of the interstates, because of the type of smuggling we deal with here in Pinal County, our dogs still do smell for marijuana. Obviously, if it's a personal use amount, that falls within the law. Anything above and beyond that, transportation of large quantities of marijuana that do not fall within the laws, that's still illegal. So just wanted to bring a couple of those issues up. But thank you more than anything. Thanks, Sergeant Skidell, for coming out and doing this today. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving us the opportunity to talk about it.
Does anyone else have questions? Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Sergeant Skidell, when you talked about, an untrained dog, 7,000 or 8,000, a fully trained dog, 20,000, is the 20,000 a better value, or is it a better value to have the dog trained with the local guy?
It's better by far to have the dog trained by our own personnel. Again, we follow a program that's called TAC Dogs. It was founded by a gentleman named Brett Titus in Colorado. It's since been sold to another person who was co-owner at the time. Anyway, the program that we follow really focuses on tapping into these drives. Other programs like Adlerhorst, and there's, National Drug Dog Detection Association and a couple others, their expectations for certification are unrealistic and compared to what we actually encounter on a daily basis. And from a patrol standpoint also, it's very, very heavy equipment focused. You may have, or you may go to some canine demonstrations where you see a decoy very, very animated and really kind of rile the dog up by yelling and screaming, waving his arms around and just acting up to gain attention. That's kind of a standard practice for a lot of agencies still, but we don't encounter that on the road. So what we've looked at is why train in a manner that's not consistent with the way that we're going to deploy. So if we follow a particular program that gears specifically to realistic scenarios that we encounter in actual law enforcement, we're going to follow that program. The two trainer instructors that I have, one's on the detention side and one's on the sworn side, they're both certified instructors through that TAC Dogs and NCATS program. So everything that they get certified in, they can come back here, train on a weekly basis, whether one's absent or not. We've always got somebody available. And again, we can maintain that status and train up to our expectations and oftentimes exceed. I also work with our SWAT team. I'm a breaching team leader, and in many of the call-outs, we go with other agencies where I've witnessed failures of canines from other agencies because a canine will go in and deploy and look for animated persons versus the passive person who's just laying there, and he'll look right over it, looking for whether it be odor from an actual bite suit or looking for that animation. I've seen dogs get deployed or be brought out, and again, suspect, totally passive but non-compliant. Other levels of force are being escalated to gain compliance from the suspect, and the dog then turns his total attention to that officer because he's more animated than the actual suspect is. We train like we play, and I would be, in my opinion at this point, doing us, the community, my team members, our handlers, a disservice if we placed ourselves in a position to train to a standard that wasn't even close to what we encounter in real life. I want our dogs to perform, sir.
Good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Sir.
Legislative update from Supervisor Miller.
Not much of an update. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Seeing how they're not in session. So I think we're all waiting. I heard that they're going to come back, I think, on the 12th. Is it 12th? Thank you. So we'll wait and see. But
we will have an invite to all of our other reps to come address us.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, for the future.
County Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. And speaking of dogs, just to give an update on our animal care and control shelter, we have about 231 dogs there now. Some are double bunked because we are at capacity. And we are doing a renovation there, which will help the kennels and the office space for their existing uses, but the site itself is restrictive for expanding capacity for kennels. So we will be exploring ways that we can provide services, possibly satellites throughout the county, or where they might be appropriate, where we can join with others to expand services, access, and capacity in that regard. Someday in the future, if we wanted, and Animal Care and Control was happy to do so, maybe we could bring some in some of our meetings to show the public what's available.
That would be cool.
And then we also have, you asked earlier about, in a previous meeting, TikTok and how that's managed around the county, and we have blocked that application from our phones and from our networks for county-owned phones and computers in our county network. And then we, as I mentioned earlier, we've been doing an education for the public on how roads are funded, the taxes that support them, and how they're used. And so we do have a video that we created to further that series.
What makes Pinal County move? Pinal County operates with your tax dollars. We use this money to develop plans and projects, to build and repair roads in the county. Pinal County leaders decided decades ago they would not use property taxes for the purpose of building or maintaining roads. Our biggest source of road money is the Highway User Revenue Fund, or HERF. This is money collected by the state when you purchase gasoline. It is this 18 cents per gallon that is the lifeblood of public works, as it pays for employees and equipment. HERF money is also used for maintenance operations, as well as minor roadway construction improvements. This money is only shared with us when you buy your gas in Pinal County, so please fill those tanks at home. We also receive state money from the Vehicle License Tax, or VLT, which is your car registration. Our other major source of road funding is the Pinal Transportation Excise Tax. This is a voter-approved 20-year half-cent sales tax, which Pinal County shares with cities in the county, that provides funding for road construction and repair. This was first started in 1987, renewed by voters in 2005, and will be up for renewal in the near future as it expires in 2026. The excise tax pays for preservation of our existing paved road. This tax also supports our Transportation Improvement and Maintenance Program, or TIMP. This is where residents can suggest road projects, which go before a committee. We also receive special grants for specific projects from the federal and state governments. With the unprecedented growth in Pinal County, every single dollar is vital to ensure we are able to preserve our future.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Purchasing Division report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the board. I am Tiara Peterson, Purchasing Manager for Pinal County, and this is your purchasing report for June 7th, 2023. First, the board is requested to approve the following contract awards: ROQ 225027 for Housing Rehabilitation and Demolition Pre-Qualified Contractors List. We recommend Post and Beam Construction be awarded a contract beginning June 8th, 2023 through June 7th, 2024, to run concurrent with the second term of the contract. This contract is used by the Office of Budget and Finance. ROQ 233828 for Jock Civil Construction Services. We recommend contracts be awarded to the following suppliers: DBA Construction Services, DCS Contracting, Inc., Ellison Mills Construction, LLC, Nesbitt Contracting Company, Inc., Sunland Asphalt and Construction, LLC, and Via Sun. The initial one-year term of the contract begins June 8th, 2023, and will run through June 27th, 2024. This contract will be used by the Public Works and Facilities Departments. ROQ 234128 for Jock Asphalt Maintenance and Repair Services. We recommend contracts be awarded to the following suppliers: Cactus Asphalt, Inc., MR Tanner Construction, Sunland Asphalt and Construction, Inc., Via Sun, and Weems Asphalt, LLC. The initial one-year term of the contract will begin on June 28th, 2023, and run through June 27, 2024. And this contract will be used by the Public Works Department. Next, the board is requested to approve the following contract amendments: RFP 193325 for Detention Food Service. We recommend approval of amendment number 4 with pricing changes and to exercise the optional extension period from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 with Airmark Correctional Services. This contract is used by the Sheriff's Office and the Youth Justice Center. RFP 203026 for Public Defense Services Office Attorney Services. We recommend approval of amendment number 3 with James Szlowski of Szlowski Law Firm, PLC, to modify Exhibit C for the addition of paralegal contractor services. And this contract is used by the Public Defense Services Office. IFB 225627 for on-site aggregate crushing services. We recommend approval of Amendment Number 1 to exercise the optional extension period beginning April 13, 2023 with Smithco Enterprises, Inc., and this contract is used by the Public Works Department. RFP 220431 for electronic health record software. We recommend approval of Amendment Number 1 to exercise the optional extension period from June 20th, 2023 through June 19th, 2024 with CureMD. This contract is used by the Public Health Department. RFP 220226 for specialty legal services. We recommend approval of Amendment Number 1 to exercise the optional extension period beginning July 1st, 2023 with the following suppliers: Coppersmith Rockelman PLC, Dickinson Wright PLLC, Greenberg Trarg LLP, Gust Rosenfeld PLC, Helm Livesay and Worthington Limited, Hinshay and Culbertson LLP, Jackson Lewis PC, Jennings Strauss and Salmon PLC, Jones Skelton and Hachuli, Jordan Law Firm PC, Kutak Rock LLP, Leonard and Felker PLC, Moyes Sellers and Hendricks Limited, Pierce Coleman PLLC, Sims Mackin Limited, Struck Love, Bojanowski and Aceto PLC. This contract is used by the County Attorney's Office. And finally, subject to final budget adoption, the Board is requested to approve the following cooperative purchase that will be received and paid in fiscal year 2023-2024. Requisition 167288 with Santan Ford in the amount of $377,423.20 for 5 2023 F-150 police responders used by the Sheriff's Department. And that concludes your Purchasing Division report for June 7th, 2023.
Any questions or discussion? If none, I will ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the purchasing report as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda items will all be approved. Anything with an asterisk, unless you want something pulled. I am having pulled F, G, H, I, and AH. And I believe Supervisor Kavanaugh wants to pull AJ. Correct?
That is correct, and I didn't get, what was the last one you wanted to pull?
What?
What was the last letter you wanted to pull? You said
Before that was AH. And
AH.
F, G, H, I, and AH. You're pulling AJ. Anyone else? Anyone from the public want to pull anything? So I will ask for a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve consent agenda items A through BA, excluding AH, AJ, F, G, H, and I.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So the ones I pulled, F, G, H, and I, we're going to put through those all together. That's all about an upcoming election this fall. If Roll can explain, because we've been under so much scrutiny with elections, a lot of people have questions, so you can explain before everybody jumps to conclusions, explain what kind of elections are there in this off year.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. These are elections that are being requested by school districts. There are Casa Grande Elementary School District, Casa Grande Union High School District, Eloy Elementary School District, and Oracle School District. We also have Sackatone School District. The Sackatone School District is for voter approval of a lease of property that they need to put to a vote. The other four are maintenance and override budget requests to their voters. And so they have elected to go on the November ballot. As near as I'm able to discern, they would prefer to be on the ballot by themselves. They were rather lost in most of them were on our last November ballot, and most of them lost. They got no votes. So they are preferring to go on a ballot that is not cluttered with a lot of other races. And we expect our primary and our general next year to be big ballots.
Can you take questions in between?
Sure.
So, for instance, since they lost and they want to come right back, does that bill go to the taxpayers or does it go to individual school districts? How does that work?
So they lost last November, and they would not have been able to go in March because it would have been in the same fiscal period. They had to wait until another fiscal year rolled over, and that's why they're going in November. The cost for the elections is paid for by the districts. So our fee schedule for non-consolidated elections is a 25-cent administrative fee for every registered voter in the district, and then they pay the actual costs for the printing, the mailing, the postage, the board workers that will be required for early ballot processing and early ballot receiving, the tabulation board, audit boards, any duplication boards, any folks that we need to run that election.
And will any of these be in person, or are they going to be mail-in only? How will that work?
They're all mail only,
All of them?
all of them.
Okay.
Just for clarification, it's mail-in because they're the only one on the ballot. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
So the only two that are going to be sharing a ballot will be Casa Grande Elementary and Casa Grande Union, and it won't be all ballot styles. But every other one will be on a ballot just by themselves.
And for clarification, too, for Chairman Surdy, the school districts or anybody always pays for their own election, even if they're blended in with others. Is that correct?
All entities that appear on your ballot, the cities, towns, school districts, special districts, if they're ever on your ballot, they all pay for their elections. But it's a different billing for the consolidated elections. That is just a 75-cent per registered voter in each district that gets charged to the entity. I'm hoping that probably by fall we will be back to you with a work session to go over our fee schedule. We saw some substantial increases in printing costs, and so we need to start building that into the overall bill that we wind up sending to those folks that are sharing the ballot with us.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. So, and this may prevent also the dual card ballot problem too, if we get some of these other races off the primary and general or the general schedule for 2024, right?
No, I have to agree with that statement, Supervisor Kavanaugh. Consolidated ballots are what are leading to very long ballots. So if they're not on there, that's just 5 less questions that we would have on a consolidated ballot.
Anyone else? Okay. Anyone else? Anything else you want to get out there? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
Nothing else.
Okay. On those 4 items.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item F, G, H, and I.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, I also pulled item number AH. I just thought that this was so broad. It's all over the place for the $238,000. I thought maybe we could pinpoint exactly what this may or may not do.
I'll give it a try. Good afternoon or good morning, Supervisors. Joe Ortiz, Pinal County Public Works Deputy Director. Just to bring a little more clarity to this, I guess, is this is a request to accept funds that are distributed through the U.S. Forest Service, through the U.S. Department of Ag. This is not a grant request. This is something that is distributed directly from them on an annual basis. Currently, this 2022, we did receive $238,460. That is part of the Secure Rules and Community Self-Determination Act. And it basically goes to 2 of the titles, Title I and Title III, not Title II. Title II is for projects that are done on federal lands. We do not have any projects that are done on federal land. Title I is specifically for rural schools and roads. So basically maintenance of roads on the Forest Service, basically Coronado and Tonto. Title III is mainly set up for FireWise community programs. We have a FireWise community program in Oracle. Oracle Fire Department is one of those. The way the money is distributed or broken out is 20% goes to Title III, the FireWise program, and 80% goes towards Title I. So that breaks out to Title III getting $47,692, and that's Title III. Title I is $190,768, and out of that Title I money, that is split 50-50 between the rural schools and road maintenance for the Forest Service. So each of those will get $95,384. Any other specifics?
Yeah. You can see how that would be confusing to see all that. So.
Yep. Right.
All right. So I think that helps to explain it. Anyone else have any questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item AH as presented.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Joe.
And Mr. Chairman, I would move for a 10-minute recess for two reasons. One is to have a quick break and then discuss with a couple of items with the Vice Mayor before we discuss item AJ, if we could do that.
Okay. We will be, I don't have a gavel. Right here. Yeah. I hit him on the knuckles. Okay. We'll take a 10-minute recess. And I also have several people that want to speak on it. We're waiting on.
Good morning, Board. Joe Ortiz, Pinal County Public Works, Deputy Director. So I'm not sure what specifics do you want me to dive into? I can.
You can just explain it generally and then hang around for potential amendments and recommendations.
So
and there's also going to be a lot of comments, so we'll learn what the people are thinking about it as well.
Sure. So this is part of that video you saw earlier kind of hit on this, the Transportation Improvement and Maintenance Program. That's the Pinal County half-cent excise tax. That's what goes to support this program. The program has a cycle as far as taking in requests. We take requests all year, and then in September we have the cutoff date, and we review those. They go through our Transportation Advisory Committee and internal for the technical staff to review. There are some criteria that we kind of look at when we look at those. Do they support some type of economic development? Do they help with our mandated fugitive dust issues in the PM10 areas or PM 2.5, whatever it may be? Would it help if we existing roads that we currently maintain, would that help with the cost of our maintenance? Does it extend some pavement life? Does it help with safety issues? Those are kind of the criteria we look at. And we also evaluate from the technical side of, we look at the average daily traffic. We look at the existing right-of-way. Is there existing Pinal County right-of-way or not? Are there costs involved associated with that? Utility conflicts, drainage issues, that's all the technical side. So that evaluation happens in October through November, that time period. And like I said, we present that to our Transportation Advisory Committee. They evaluate it. We come and we mesh out whatever list that ends up being. And then that gets presented to the board in a draft form, usually through a work session that happened, I think, in January or February of this year. So now we're on the tail end of the cycle where we're asking the board for final approval of that. And that's kind of where we're at this point. I can give you more detail. I'm not sure.
That's fine for the moment. We had a call our office did, and perhaps other supervisors by the city of Maricopa requesting some modifications. The committee makes recommendations, and then there's a 30-day period, and you can comment during that time. It's not set in stone, and I know that one of the comments from the city, the vice mayor, will make a presentation on a modification they're asking for. So
sure,
you can hang around and maybe comment.
I will be here.
No more questions. I'm going to go to the folks that want to speak on this, and I've got Vice Mayor Rich Vitello.
Chairman Sturdy, is it okay if I have the residents of Maricopa speak first before me? Is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
Go to Priscilla Benz. Pronounce your last name, please.
It is Banky.
Okay. Okay, that's a K. I thought it was an H.
Oh, sorry, my handwriting.
All right.
I wanted to be a doctor. I'm just kidding. Didn't want to go to school. All right. Hi, thanks for hearing me out today. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Be Awesome Youth Coalition and the families that we serve. Our families utilize the 347, as does the majority, 75% of Maricopa's workforce. Unfortunately, the overcapacity of this 347 is causing delays, and families are looking at 2.5-hour commute times to return home. This is costing our families time that is not being put towards each other or our community back in Maricopa. As a coalition committed to the development of confident, connected, and successful youth, we have been tracking risk factors and that influence the delinquency through the Arizona Youth Survey. Youth who do not feel connected to their neighborhoods in which they live are more likely to become involved in problem behaviors. As a newer city with an ever-growing population, we have traditionally seen high rates of low neighborhood attachment. With a consistent new influx of residents and increased delays caused by the commute on the 347, we have seen this risk factor jump significantly from 56.4% in 2016 to 63.7% currently. We are also seeing a rise in the numbers of those reporting risk due to high family conflict. Parents who are regularly trapped in gridlock traffic for long hours before and after school are not bonding with their children, nor are they involved with their education or other activities, all of which are critical to the development of successful children, which is why it doesn't surprise us that the risk factor of family conflict rose from 36.4% in 2016 to 50.4% right now. At Be Awesome, we are committed to working with families and youth at an individual level to help them reach their potential. However, the roads leading in and out of our community are a key environmental factor affecting 3/4 of Maricopa families here in your county. I'm asking you to reconsider the cost allocations for the roads to consider expanding and repairing the 347 as you guys make your budget allocations. Thank you.
Brandy Holman.
Good morning, Council. I'm just a parent that frequents 347, so I just wanted to give you an idea of what the havoc is on my family dynamic. Every day for the last 7 years, I am on 347 twice a day, and I'm just sitting there. It's at 4 hours of my day is just sitting on 347. The things I endure on 347 is the traffic, the anger, the aggressive driving, the drinking, the uses of phones, the landscape trucks, the 18-wheelers, the gravel trucks, and now the motorcycles. Using the median to go around, we're at a dead stop, the timing of the lights, let alone the accidents that occur. Where is Highway Patrol? Well, they show up a couple of days and then they're gone. Then they'll come back in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. It's not helping. Also, I travel 340, and I travel 347 all times. My son has special needs. He has autism, and I chose for him to go to a school in Gilbert, and his school is 8 to 3. Well, we leave Maricopa at 6, and I don't get home until 6 with him because we're sitting literally on the 347. With his special needs and anxiety, it is really hard. And I'm already missing half of the afternoon with my daughter because she gets out at 3, but we're still sitting on 347. So we don't get to have family dinners very often, and that my kids can't even be in sports or any clubs because I can't make it there to get them. I couldn't tell you how many days or that we've missed school because of an accident in the morning. Let's see what else. There are thousands of families that endure the disaster called 347 for the same reasons I've already described. And this is my only way in and out of the city. Now my daughter is old enough to drive. Her and her friends are so scared to be on 347. You can't even convince them or bribe them to drive that road. It's just really sad to keep reading about families that have to bury loved ones. And I really hope that we look at the budget again and be able to do something about 347. Thanks.
Ron Angerami.
Can I pass this distribute, or can you distribute this? Thank you so much. Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for allowing me to address you today. My name is Ron Angerami. I'm a citizen of Maricopa. And there's basically two things I'd like to chat with you about today. I did have an opportunity to review your TIMP budget. I poured through your 1,400 and something pages to pull out all the sections with regard to the TIMP budget. And as you can see from the handout that I'm passing out, that the TIMP budget over the next 5 years looks like it's about a little over $83 million. When I look at that divided by the different districts, it looks like District 1 gets a little over 11 million, District 2 gets 20 million, District 3 gets 3 million, so on and so forth. You know, the interesting thing was that when I looked at the $83 million in the total budget and $11 million going to Maricopa, out of the $11 million, a little less than $7.5 million went to one specific project, the Vencol Wash project. The remaining $3 million, a little over $3 million, went to a series of very small projects, all located in the extreme southwestern part of the district. There was really no work or allocation being done anywhere in the major metropolitan part of Maricopa or in the northern section. And I think what I wanted to sort of chat today was sort of a plea to get additional funding for the 347. As you may remember, back in March of 2018, there was a 347 corridor profile study done by ADOT. And ADOT reported at that time, quote, there was a necessity to widen to the inside to provide a total of 6 lanes, 3 in each direction, with a raised median. And then recently, you may be aware that ADOT conducted a safety study in April. A couple of high points from the study was that they reported that in the 5-year time period, there were 967 crashes, of which 15 were fatal and 21 serious injuries. That the Riggs Road intersection ranked 4th among signal intersection accidents. Their recommendation, add roadway and intersection capacity, widening State Route 347. So we have multiple reports from ADOT strongly recommending that this 347 be addressed from not only a safety but a capacity issue. You know, one of the great barometers that we have today is the use of social media. It really can help us keep a pulse on what people are thinking. And I happened to notice in a social media post that there was a lady moving from Seattle to Arizona, actually Maricopa, and said, hey, tell me about Maricopa. I'm moving there, and what's good, and where should I live? And I'm going to just read a couple of the comments, but I think you kind of get a sense that everybody was very, very high and very enthusiastic about Maricopa, with the exception of 347. So the first one was, quote, 90% of the community is amazing until you drive on the 347 highway. Then it's like the Twilight Zone, and all bets are freaking off. Get home, and the same people who tried to run you off the road are offering a helping hand and give support to you when you are faced with a hard time in life. Other than that, this town is beautiful. Another person wrote, we love Maricopa. It just doesn't feel like it'll be a long-term home because of the commute my guy has to make every day. Pinal County is enjoying record growth in Maricopa, with Maricopa playing a major part. This growth may be jeopardized if 347 is not addressed. The last part I want to do, which is pretty heart-rending, just so you know, is I did have an opportunity to chat with Cecilia Fernandez. This was the lady whose 10-year-old daughter was killed approximately 3 months ago on 347. And I asked her, we chatted, and she wanted to be here, but it was too soon for her, so she asked me to she wrote a letter that I'd like to just read an excerpt from. So she writes, "My daughter had a serious head injury, and due to that, she lost her battle, and God called her home. My sister was just 28 and was the second person with serious injuries. Her injuries included, but not limited to, her breaking a couple of her back discs, her ear was cut off, her left leg was broken in 3 parts, her right knee fractured. My brother has a broken disc in his back, and my mom has her ankle completely broken. I want to see change because right now no one cares how fast or how reckless anyone drives on 347. Never in my 30 years living in Arizona have I witnessed so many car accidents on one highway freeway or on even a city street. My family and I got 10 more seconds, thank you. My family and I moved to Maricopa in 2020, and 3 years later I had to bury my 10-year-old. That should have never happened. She had so many dreams and goals, but someone carelessly took her away from her family, friends, and teammates. I don't want her memory to go or name to go in vain because her life matters and still matters. We have something to do so no family has to go through what my family is still going through. Help me help my daughters, keep my daughter's name alive and her memory. Let's change 347 for the better and not for the worse, because I'm afraid if we don't do something, other innocent people will be killed because of reckless drivers. Thank you for your time, and God bless."
Thank you. Bill Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning. My name is Bill Robertson, a resident of Maricopa. I'm also the Vice Chairman of the City Planning and Zoning Commission. Recently, the U.S. Census Bureau has recently named the city of Maricopa the 8th fastest growing metropolitan area in the country. We're currently 2nd or 3rd in the state of Arizona behind Buckeye. There are currently 27,000 single-family residence homes in Maricopa. Here's the kicker. We have 70,000 more on the books entitled to be built, probably in the next decade. This represents 76% of Maricopa residents travel to 347 daily for work, school, or pleasure. The 347 scoping study we completed a few years ago, and most recently the ADOT traffic safety analysis, has officially declared that State Road 347 needs more travel lanes via a nonstop parkway type design. Assembling funding sources is a high priority for all stakeholders. Everybody's at the table. The City of Maricopa, ADOT, Gila River Indian Community, and MAG. The only one that's really missing is the Pinal County. There's been no funding offered through any means from Pinal County during this process. Assembling these sources is very important. Failure to assemble sources and put us on the table with these other stakeholders is likely to impact other sourcing fundings because it doesn't show as a priority for the county. We fully understand that this is a state road and it's not your responsibility. And the PRTA has a process in place for allocating the funds that may be needed to assist or to be seed money or to get on the table. But we need your support. It takes a village. This has been long overdue. The time is overdue, but the need is now. There is several opportunities for funding. Federal grants, Indian Highway Transportation grants, ADOT's budget. We implore to get us on the radar with Pinal County's funding tools that may be available, be it TIMP, be it PRTA, be it HERF funds, whatever the case may be. We need you on the radar and at the table with us. The time is now for Pinal County to take the first step in supporting 347. The critical need for the region, your investment will create an opportunity for not only the city of Maricopa, but for future economic development for that portion of Pinal County. Northwest Pinal County is rapidly growing. We have opportunity for industrial growth and investment, but we've also been told by many of those investors not until there's a good transportation system. We know that we may have missed the boat on our application for funds through the TIMP this go-around, but we would like to get you at the table with us. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now we're back to Rich Vicello. Who knew there were so many Italians in Maricopa?
First of all, again, thank you. We appreciate you guys taking the time and listening. This is just a few of the members here in Maricopa who value the lives of each other and value the city of Maricopa. They drive that freeway day in and day out, and we have many, many sad stories. The job that these representatives of our city took away 3/4 of everything I wanted to say. But what I want to say is we understand funds are difficult. We go up to D.C. every year, and we do what we do best is beg for money. We know MAG is a big part of it. We need to get money from MAG. We need to get money from Pinal County. We need to get money from Maricopa County. The bottom line is that without the skin in the game from the Pinal County, we will not have any kind of match to bring. We do have some to talk about. So matches such as $6 million for the design that Representative Martinez got us, $59 million for the Riggs Road overpass that Brett Roberts and Teresa Martinez were able to get, $18 million for sign removal from Shope and Martinez, the north of 347 widening funding for from Maricopa County, and then Queen Creek overpass and the widening of I-10. One of the other things is obviously getting money. The biggest one that we need is a match. Without your guys' match, we are looking for a $15 million match. Sounds like a lot of money, but over the next 3 years, it's something that we feel can be achieved. Now, we're not greedy. We will listen. We will work with you to figure out a way to get us something for this. But without your guys' stake in the game, we may not get this. As you know, Prop 469, which Maricopa overwhelmingly voted for yes, was unfortunately didn't pass. The citizens of Maricopa are seriously shot down with that money. That money will actually crush us if we don't receive that type of money. So again, I can reiterate 3 pages that I have here to speak about, but these wonderful citizens that I get to live with and work with day in and day out hit a lot of the stuff. But again, without your guys' support and funding, we'll never see this project happen. So we need Pinal County, who we've worked with great with. The city of Maricopa is very appreciative of everything that you guys do, but without the support for this particular one project, it could be to economic development, could really be a hardship for us for that because people don't want to bring their families into the city. Companies can't get their products in and out of the city. And as we are one of the largest growing cities in Pinal County, and we are the largest city in Pinal County now, and we want to continue to grow. And without your guys' help, it'll be very difficult to do all that. So I please see in your heart the fact that people are dying on this road. People are having accidents. You only heard, like I said, 18 issues. We got a lot more. So please, dig deep. Look in your hearts to understand that the city of Maricopa, without your stake in the game, the growth will never happen. And I love this city. I've been here 17 years in this city. I plan on being here even longer. I've got family in the city, and I want to continue to have my family grow in the city of Maricopa. So thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the extra time. God bless you guys. I understand what a difficult job you have. I'm on the other side of the table here in our city. And believe me, this is just 4 or 5 of the people that I have to speak to day in and day out about trying to get out of this city. So thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this pulled item? If not, any more discussion? And if none, then I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment, if I may. Excuse me. So on this allocation, we have a Hidden Valley Road project. I think it's more of a dust control project. And the project cost is $400,000. And we could use that money as a sort of a down payment and allocate it toward the 347 overpass projects and the various projects that could be covered by federal grants. And then budget, I would say at least $1.65 million for 4 consecutive years, beginning with fiscal year 26-27. And that, I don't know how I would word that precisely, but that's my recommendation.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So, you know, we're always battling the EPA. And so with these dirt roads, they've got to be maintained. They've got to be taken care of. In order for us to get federal dollars, we have to bring or mitigate some of the issues that we have. So for me, taking $400,000 from Peter to pay Paul just doesn't make sense at this point. Joe, I have a question for you. Being that the TIMP funds are specific to certain items, right?
Correct.
We collect them in a certain way. Is there a possibility of some other funds that could be brought in, you know, so to speak? I get it. You know, my district is the Santan Valley area. And for years, I know the problems with having one access in and out. I've had a daughter myself that was in the middle of her delivery and stuck in traffic, and so because of an accident. So I get all that. But again, it comes back to dollars and cents here. Is there, rather than taking from these projects, which you guys have spent a lot of time and effort, is there a way that we can come up with a plan for that, so to speak, skin in the game, to where we can give some support? But anyway, that's a question I have as well.
Before, so the TIMP is the TIMP. I mean, improvement and maintenance. That's right. And we're putting that on the ballot next year. It's 24.
Correct.
And in 25, we're running the RTA again, the PRTA again, which is the funding mechanism for roads like 347, our skin in the game. And I understand that that's a ways off. We have to redo the plan because the previous plan voted for in 2017, that failed, is now over 5 years old, and that plan is now null and void. So.
Correct. Yeah. We do agree with the public that spoke that yes, State Route 347 is a valued project. That's a given. But you are correct. There was the RTA, the PRTA that would have been a great project for this, and that creates the challenge of this revenue source is more set up for local, smaller type projects. This project is a $15 million project that's more of a regional network connector. Then the other challenge that we probably have to vet out, I'm not sure how this is going to work, but State Route 347 is a ADOT facility, not a county facility, so I'm not sure legally how do we spend this dollar on this type of project. I'm not sure. So there's still some questions that would have to be answered.
Steve. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see another challenge. I've pulled it up here on a map. 90% of that is on the Indian reservation. Is it not?
Through the GRIC. Yes.
Through the GRIC. You see how long it's taken us to widen I-10. We ain't even there yet. There's a lot of challenges to this, and I'm not trying to poo-poo it. It's just that we're going to need a team effort, and the team effort might come from the state legislature and MAG and those funding sources, and sitting down with ADOT and making sure they have that on their 5-year plan, sooner than later. And
right.
There's just a lot going on for this thing.
Supervisor Miller, Joe, I believe the Gila River Indian community approved.
Did they approve?
They approved widening, but they approved like inward rather than outward. Is that correct? Is that my understanding?
That's my interpretation. I haven't dove into it, but that's.
And I'm seeing nods behind you.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've watched this for a few years,
So
but they're coming inward.
The ask is for 6 lanes. That's the ask. And go inward. Well, there's another fight with the feds, but that's whatever. It's just a lot of challenges. But I agree. We are mandated on the dust pallet stuff. We barely have the money to do that. So I don't suggest pulling any money from any of that for any reason. So, a matter of fact, we need more money because we are now in a serious non-attainment area, and they're up in the ante on us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Could I just chime in for a second here on this? This I fully commit to and agree with the city that this is one of the highest priority needs in the county. It's fairly complicated, takes many partners to do it. There's many different sources out there, but I think as we go into this, we can commit, our team to working with yours, legislative liaisons included, our engineers, our different funding sources, in order to identify ways that we could be at the table with them as a presence and also as an in-kind and also as resources. But I think it's going to take some digging for us to do that, to get to a good solution. And I think there's probably, several different options of getting there, but we can commit to working with the city to get there together.
And if I could real quick, Leo, can we look at putting some dollars behind that as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
As Vice Mayor mentioned, there's local match involved in a lot of these sources.
Okay.
And we can help be a partner in that.
Just add to it too. That there are some things that we could do to help support this, and I think one of those is being that voice to ADOT. We do have an ADOT board meeting coming up, I think June 16th, so we can
right here in town
throw our support in that. I know that that safety study that was brought forward, I think we supported that as well. There is the PRTAs. Hopefully that is the true, I believe in my eyes, the true funding source to help something like this, because there is that regional significance with that type of funding source. And then I think there's a couple others, like the MAG, that 400E, that's out there. And I believe the appropriations that were given for the east-west corridor, that 9.5 mil, that's probably another legislative push that we could probably help support as well through that type of program.
And if I might add, with being the representative from this board that sits on MAG, we've already started a coalition with all the cities that are under MAG, working with Pinal County, and we're making some big headways there as well, to where we can push them and continue to have a stronger force in what we're doing. The stories that have been told, let me tell you how impactful those really are when it comes time to push our situation with the voters. I think it's imperative that we get these kind of stories put out to people as we're looking to have them vote on whether or not they're willing to increase their taxes to pay for roads and infrastructure. So the stories make a big part of everything. So let's keep reminded of that as well. Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair, at this point, I'd make a motion to approve AJ as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries. So if you'll notice at the end of the meeting, we're going to have an executive session in which we require outside counsel who is up against a time constraint. So I want to ask for a motion to move consent or executive session to now so we can get that out of the way.
So move.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, we are in executive session. We're back in session. Item number 7, public hearing, approval, disapproval, resolution number 060723-RD22-120. drainage, horses.
Good afternoon, Chairman Celeste Garza with the Public Works Department, here for item 7. This is extinguishment of, do you have a presentation for this one? Thank you, ma'am. This is extinguishment of a 50-foot drainage and equestrian easement located across 3 different lots in a subdivision that was platted in 2004. The subdivision, at the time in 2004, Hunt Highway, the first phase of Hunt Highway was not built. The construction, the existing road was 2 lanes. Alongside of the roadway were some drainage ditches, and the water conveyed through these 3 lots. Since then, in 2013, the county went in and widened, put in a box culvert crossing and some significant channel improvements, which now form that curved portion of their property walls today. So the property owner is asking for these extinguishment of this drainage easement across actually 3 different lots, so it's 3 different owners. At the time when we did the road project, we did present the abandonment as an option to them to be able to extinguish, but the previous owners didn't move forward with the process. So here we are today, removing it from their properties. We did consult with Kent on the equestrian use of the easement, and he confirmed that it does not align with any of our regional trail plans. So we wouldn't have a trail through the backside of those lots. So, and there was never anything constructed in the easement. The HOA was also consulted and agreed to the abandonment as well.
So any discussion? This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this issue? Hearing, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 7 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that carries. Item number 8, discussion, approval, disapproval, accepting assignment, assumption of grant easement. Joe.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chair, Board of Supervisors, Joe Ortiz, Pinal County Public Works Deputy Director. Before I get too far, I just want to make a quick correction on the item description itself, where it states discussion, approval, disapproval, accepting the assignment. It should read approving, discussion, approval, disapproval, approving the assignment of the assumption of the grant of easement. So let me give you a quick background. This is the item that we were first presented to the board last board meeting, but there were some corrections that needed to get in place in part of this revision. Those have happened. It's a clean grant of easement at this point. Even further back, this is a cleanup item from many, many years ago, whenever Pinal County had Maricopa Road before it became State Route 347. Pinal County had a grant of easement from the Ochin through the BIA. And over the years, whenever it converted from Maricopa Road to 347, there's, not pointing fingers here, but things fell through the cracks. The assignment never happened to assign it to ADOT at the time that they came in and did their improvements and created State Route 347. So this is to help clean that up. We hope to get this approved. That's the recommendation of staff to approve this grant of easement. At that point in time, it will be assigned to ADOT. ADOT would take that forward and get it recorded through the BIA. And then once that happens, I believe they'll take that forward to hopefully get that assigned back to Maricopa, City of Maricopa. These are basically for improvements that City of Maricopa would like to do along 347 within that right-of-way of Farrell Road intersection. I guess I should have mentioned to our group from City of Maricopa that there is some activity on 347, but this is south of where they're talking about, though.
Any questions or discussion?
And this is at the entrance of Ochan, is it not? Because they're bringing the road like straight out of that and then going up around Alma Farrell's house and then back onto Farrell.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yep. And we do have a representative from ADOT and representatives from Ochan if you have any questions of them.
Any more questions or discussion? Okay, this is not a public hearing yet. I have folks that want to comment, so the procedure to do that is just let them come up?
Yes, Chairman, if you so please.
Okay. So we are going to hear from Timothy Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just wanted to say we're aware of the history, as explained by Joe there, and the community is aware of this need for the transfer, and also supports the City of Maricopa's project, which appears to be the first leg of the east-west corridor, called Sonoran Desert Parkway. So that's all I wanted to say.
And you are from Ochin.
Yeah, Timothy Costello, and I'm actually the airport manager, Ochin Regional Airport.
Okay.
Also here is Delia Carlisle. She is a community member. I don't know if she wants to come to the mic or not, but I'm just identifying her for the board.
Yeah, I do have a card for her too. So yeah, if she wants to, now's the time.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Delia Carlisle, and I'm a former council member for Ochin. I'm proud to say 36 years. I guess it's time to retire, but not really go out to pasture at this time. But I had some good conversation with Mr. Ortiz along with Timothy Costello earlier about the transfer agreement. And again, it's not a way of pointing fingers at anyone. It was something that happened over 30 years ago. And so coming into this, we just hope that with future projects, because there's developments that will be also going south on 347, that we all come to the table. City of Maricopa, Pinal County, MAG, whoever, everybody's at the table, and no matter how small of a part they might play in the role of any expansion on 347, we all need to be at the table at the same time to understand what their role is. Just in our case, I think a lot of people don't still understand that although we are a tribal community, we also have to follow the federal requirements, and that's through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And so we don't want to hinder projects, but we too have to follow. We have the powers that be above us that we have to adhere to their regulations. And as a side note, 347, I traveled that road when it was just a 2-lane road. I've lived out there 67 years. I'm not ashamed of that. 67 years when it was a 2-lane road. And my aunt, Leona Kicker, and myself, we were on the election board when they had the vote to expand Maricopa. And I gave Mr. Ortiz just a little bit of information that when that happened, we started the election at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, and we didn't finish till 3 o'clock Wednesday morning. And we had to hand tally all those votes at that time with the crowd watching over us. So 347, just like you heard from the residents of Maricopa, it also affects us too, because it's almost a one-way in, one-way out. But we also have to remember it's going south too. So please, just for a matter of information, please have everybody at the table so it kind of smooths out the process. There's no delaying anything with that, because that road is lifeblood for many out there. Thank you for your time.
Any more discussion? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve item 8 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the ayes have it. Item number 9, approval, disapproval. Consider the county engineer's recommendation to establish a county highway, a portion of Thornton Road and Selma Highway. Chris Wanamaker.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Yes, this item is to set a public hearing for July 5th to establish Thornton Road as a county roadway that will help facilitate our widening project, which supports the Lucid manufacturing project. So if there are any questions about that, let me know.
Are there any questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
Which number are we on here? 9?
9.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve item number 9 as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 10, discussion, approval, disapproval, Pinal County tentative budget. That's an important one, I think.
Morning, Chairman, members of the board. Angie Woods, Director of Office of Budget and Finance. The purpose of the agenda item today is to adopt a tentative budget and the schedules that are prescribed by our state statute and Arizona Auditor General guidelines. I do have a short presentation, more like charts and graphs of what's included, but the schedules are attached to the agenda item, and that's what you're really approving today. So this budget was developed with your guidance and your priorities in mind, focusing on financial strength and stewardship, structurally balanced budget, our employee compensations, and those discussions that we had 2 weeks ago regarding the primary and secondary property tax rates were also taken into consideration. This is a pie chart of the total budget for the county for fiscal year 23-24. The special revenue fund makes up 46% of the budget. Major categories that are included in special revenue funds are things like our HERF, or highway user revenue fees, our transportation excise tax. We talked a lot about both of those things today. Our flood control district, our library district, public health is included in there. A lot of state, federal grants are included in there. One of the largest at this point is our American Rescue Plan Act. It's all included in that 46%. In the capital projects, those are all those projects that we discussed last 2 weeks ago, making up 9% of the budget. And then obviously the general fund makes up 40%. Some highlights, and we don't need to go over these in detail, but because they were included in my presentation 2 weeks ago, but we're continuing to make that commitment to financial strength and stewardship, even though our tentative budget is including a primary property tax that remains at $3.56. We talked a lot 2 weeks ago about inflation and how that is tied to our existing property valuation. Valuations grew about 4.81%, which is comparable to the inflation for the last 12 months. Local excise tax, state shared sales tax, the thing that I'd like to say there, we're using a lot of those increases in those excise tax to fund our one-time projects. So as those continue to grow, we'll be able to continue to fund those projects. Reallocations and budgetary increases. There again, I have given you some additional supplementary information. Discussed those in the last presentation, but they're both personnel and operational increases along with those one-time increases. Strategic compensation increases and employee medical benefits contributions are highlight here as well. Mary Ellen Shepard, Deputy County manager will be presenting in a future meeting to discuss the changes that are included in the budget in regards to compensation. In looking at all the revenues of the general fund, we like to break it out into the different types. So you can see here the largest type is our primary property tax still, or our property tax, sorry, and it includes the primary property tax, the flood control district, and the library district in that 24%. The miscellaneous, right now we're budgeting contributions for transportation projects, leases, interest, all makes up that miscellaneous percentage. And there again, the state shared and county excise tax makes up a large portion of the revenues that we receive. So very important to try to purchase services and goods within our county. And then 14% are state and federal grants, things like CBDG, our housing grants, our ARPA funds, some are the major categories. And then 19% is all of the other categories that I have listed there. HERF is in there, 5%, our charges for services, which is development related, vehicle license tax, all of those things are impact the revenues that we receive here at the county. So this chart we changed a little bit to really give you an idea how much the county is investing in our public infrastructure. So out of the funds that are budgeted for this coming fiscal year, 48% of those go to public infrastructure. And when I talk about public infrastructure, I'm talking about transportation projects, our flood control projects, our facilities projects. So the very things that impact our citizens on a daily basis. And then you can see here, criminal justice and law enforcement make up that next biggest piece. And those are all of our county attorneys, the clerk of the court, the PCSO dollars, anything related to the Superior Court, our juvenile, adult probation, and detention. All of those things are in that 23%. And then, of course, the general government is all of the 5 Board of Supervisor district offices, our treasurers, our recorder, assessor's office, our county manager, and any of those appointed departments would be in the distribution of that 19%. This next chart, just to punctuate on the growth of the full-time employees. We're growing not too quickly. This particular year is 3.5% over the previous year, so really about 83 funded positions additional total for next year. It's interesting to take a look back and at the peak in 2010 and 2011, we had 2,594 employees here at the county, so we haven't even reached that number. This chart is a representation of the maximum allowable primary property tax levy, and those are the bars, and then the line is how much we're actually levying each year. And I find it interesting that that kind of punctuates on how last time I was before you and spoke about how our system is working for us and the strides in which we've made, because back in 10-11, the levy was exactly the same as the max that we could do, and you can see it today. We are $67.2 million below our levy. It's interesting to note that in 2010, the population of the county was about 376,000 people. Today, it's about 454,000 people, and which is a 20% increase. Although our Levy has only increased 18% over that period of time. And again, if you look at inflation during that same point in time, inflation has increased 39%. So just speaks to the stewardship of the dollars that we are levying, how well we're using those. Focusing more on the general fund, this pie chart just shows the revenue that's coming in, very similar to previous years. Primary property tax being the major contributor, intergovernmental, which is state shared, majority of it is state shared, excise tax and vehicle license tax, and then that 13% of county sales tax. So just tells you how those majority categories that we focus on. And this is how we have budgeted to spend. And like last year, very, very similar to last year, 28% for our sheriff's office, 30% for general government, 15% for the courts, legal, 15%, and then health, 10%. And the note on the bottom tells you how those categories are broken up, which departments are in those. I have on the screen the forecast, and this forecast isn't different from 2 weeks ago, but I had a little bit of difficulty explaining or at least punctuating on why we would want to leave the primary property tax rate at $3.56. So I added one line here. Really, it's that almost to the bottom, it's total revenue less total expenditures. So our budget is structurally balanced at 4%, more revenue than expenditures. But those one-time expenditures, the total revenue less total expenditures, we're actually spending $29 million out of our financial stability reserve. And because we are putting that money toward public infrastructure, it just, to leave the rate the same, and to offset the inflation and to help us fund those projects out of our revenues now rather than bonding. I just wanted to kind of show you the actual dollars that we're doing that with. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. So which leads me to my last slide. The fiscal year 23-24 budget is $1,021,673,046. It's an increase of $4.6 million, and most of those increases are related to transportation projects. So there's some ins and outs there, but when you look at the big picture, we're the main contributor to the increase is all transportation related. And again, as a reminder, the tentative budget, once we adopted this tentative budget, that is our ceiling. We won't be able to increase the budget higher than this. And because our primary property tax rate is staying the same, we'll be holding a truth and taxation hearing held on July the 5th. So if there's any questions.
Any question? Is that the end of the presentation?
That is, sir.
Okay. There was, Mr. Chairman, thank you. There was one anomaly where we were going through the budget. Did you speak with Rebecca Padilla?
Chairman Surdy, Supervisor Kavanaugh, I have not spoken with her.
Okay.
I'm not aware of the anomaly at this point.
Okay. It deals with an amount that's on the budget that it stood out as being higher on page 20, recorder storage. The actual expenditures were $391,602, and the expenses budgeted for 2024 was $1,234,000. And I didn't know if any answer came of that question that was presented.
So, Chairman Surtee, Supervisor Kavanaugh, I'd be happy to take a look at that. We do have the ability to make some adjustments between today and when we adopted our final budget.
Okay.
I will specifically speak to Ms. Padilla in regards to that fund. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Steve?
Just real quick, Chairman. We can go down, but we can't go up from this number today.
Chairman Surtee, Supervisor
This is the
Nelson.
ceiling.
That's correct.
Okay, just so everybody knows.
I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve item number 10 as presented for 2020, 22, and 23, or 23 and 24 budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries.
Thank you.
A work session item on aquifer protection.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Brent Billingsley, Community Development. So when I got hired at the county, one of the things that I was asked to take a look at was our existing fee structures and their viability in terms of provision of services, customer service, and our employees. As you know, the board hired a consultant to come in and audit the department, and that recommended some changes. One of the things that we were asked to look at was our fee schedules because they're out of date with current industry standards. I'm going to try to go through this as quick as possible. I think that you guys all know we perform the aquifer protection function, and it's deferred to us from the state or delegated to us from the state. You recently, I want to say 2 months ago, Atul, adopted the new delegation improvement from or agreement from the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality to provide those services. We have 5 full-time employees that perform this work, and it has to do primarily with septic tanks. I think everybody's familiar with ADEQ. It's the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, and our state, and in this case ADEQ, is asked under federal law to provide certain services that have to do with environmental quality in Arizona. It's given to them through federal authorization, and they have programs on air quality, water quality, solid waste, and other functions. One of those key functions has to do with water quality. This is an org chart that shows our current staffing as it relates to the Aquifer Protection Group. That group is headed by Mr. Atul Shah, who's here today. And we took a look at our fees and how that relates. This slide was put here just to show the authority that the state has and the county has in terms of a fee schedule to perform services that are deferred to us. This is a copy of the delegation agreement. Should look familiar because you guys just voted on the re-upped delegation agreement, I think, 2 meetings ago. And it authorizes us to handle certain solid waste and water quality work on behalf of the state of Arizona and essentially acting as the state of Arizona. We have several different delegation agreements across the county, obviously with respect to air quality and some of the stuff that has to do with health and human welfare. Aquifer protection happens to be one of those. Also, building safety is deferred to us from the state as well. Under our agreement, we are able to determine our own fees. Most of the folks that have delegation from the state choose to use the state fees for the cost. And that's essentially what I'm recommending today with one caveat. So the state is currently in the process of updating its fees. and its fees are going to go up substantially. And that's what this slide is showing. So you can see by category in terms of the state fees, the increases that are going to occur in August. I believe it's August the 4th, the new fees will be in place. So what we're proposing in terms of our fee schedule is that we adopt the current state fee schedule before the increases take place. So we still have a competitive advantage, and it's a lesser fee than what the fees will be charged by ADEQ in August. What does that look like? This gives you an idea of the proposed fees versus the current fees. What our proposed fees, which mirror obviously the ADEQ current fees, and then what the county charges currently. As we stand today, this division doesn't pay for itself. We do not collect enough funds to pay for the cost of the division. I asked Atul before the meeting today, and he ran some math. We depend on the general fund between $200,000 and $250,000 a year to keep this whole. So our fee schedule is lower than what it costs to actually fund the department. Here's some resources. I have forgotten. Atul, what year was our fee schedule approved? We have not updated our fees since 2001, so that's why we're so far behind the common fee schedules around the state. It's been a long time.
So, real quick question, Mr. Billingsley. So if you raise these, will that cover your costs?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And we're still then very competitive, obviously, because we're lower than what the state would charge.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Will it cover an amount exceeding your costs?
It depends on how active we are. If we have, obviously it has to do with volume. So if the economy goes south and we're at a low volume, probably won't. But if things continue to boom, it will probably have excess revenue above actual costs. So we're trying to looking at an average in what we do. I will tell you that we did over 100 septics last month. That's outside the norm. We don't typically do that number. That's twice what we usually do. So if we stay in that realm, there may be excess revenue beyond the cost of doing business. What happens in that case, and I think you guys know this through the budget process every year, is we have certain divisions. We're one of the only departments that makes money for the county on the fees that we collect. If there's excess revenues, it goes into the general fund. I think last year we contributed, Angie, about $1.4 million to the general fund. Overall, the department, that's with all the divisions, right? So excess revenues go back to the general fund for you guys to allocate in the budget.
So you're our slot machine?
Well, $1.4 million isn't a ton, but it's something.
All right.
Anything else? So this is work session just for informational then. So thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 12, future agenda requests. I have several. Anybody? Okay, the one is, and I've been actually working this behind the scenes with Mark Lamb, and we talked with, when we went down and talked to the state land commissioner last month. One of the questions that came up this morning was about them enforcing their own permits and taking care of their own land. They have 9 million acres, and yet they rely on county sheriffs and other people to take care of them. So we're not getting anywhere discussing it behind the scenes, so I would like to bring this out into the public and get that on an agenda, maybe have someone from the State Land Commission come and let them communicate with us on what we're up against and how we need to be reimbursed for patrolling their land. And they, with the amount of squatters and people that are just coming and plopping down, something's got to happen there. So, and they are aware of that. So I'd like to get that on the agenda. The other thing is, you know, every meeting we have Supervisor Miller do the legislative update, but I would like it to have all of the supervisors, if you have something pertinent going on in your district that you would like to discuss, or not discuss, but to get out there. Let's say you have some charity that is struggling and they need, just make people aware of it, for instance. Or like, for instance, when we do this, the first one I'm going to do is on the effort to get Highway 88 open in my district. So that would be an example. Would like it not to be political. This is not for campaigning purposes, just to let the people know what's going on in your district. Just got word this morning that fire restrictions are coming tomorrow. That's the kind of a thing you could announce. Hey, there's no burn areas anywhere. So just give everybody a few minutes to, if you don't have anything, don't force it. But if you have anything that you want to get out there, and I assume would do that at the same time during the county manager's report and the legislative report. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
So I have the one item, we discussed it, and I want to formalize it, that we have a work session concerning funding for the overpasses on 347, and perhaps in a couple of BOS meeting cycles, give the staff time to prepare. So maybe the first one 6 weeks from now or so. What date would that be?
And that's for a work session, correct?
Right.
Okay, so September the 14th.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, we've already done our, Steve?
If I may, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to throw this out because listening to Mr. Seaman and some other folks, this wouldn't necessarily be a meeting, but we'd have to post it because I think we should all be there. But at one point, we brought in state legislators that impacted Pinal County, had a luncheon, but had it as kind of a do it in the fall, just before they go back into session, and kind of bring up some highlights for the future agendas at the legislature, things that we might be championing. So I just like to kind of put that on the radar screen for some time in the fall. We bring them all in, and we can chat with them, and then we'll feed them lunch.
And to come back to my wish to have everybody do an update on their area, if they want to bring in a special guest or something, that would need to be agendized. You can't just have someone come and take your time. So if you want to have somebody to present, we'll put it on the agenda. But if you just want to do some announcements, we'll use it at that time. So, at that, we will be adjourned.